What would you do if the man who shattered your soul, the one who looked you in the eye and chose power over you, suddenly decided he wanted you back? The decree arrives on a moonless night. Black wax, the color of old blood. The king's seal pressed into it like a wound that never healed. Lyra's hands find the letter before her eyes do. She doesn't open it standing. She sits. Slowly. The way you sit when your body already knows what your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Behind the thin wall, she can hear Leo breathing. 6 years old. Soft and even and completely unaware that the world his mother built around him, this quiet life, this careful invisibility, these lullabies she invented so he'd never learn the ones her people sang, is folding at the edges like paper held too close to flame. She reads. All wolves. Even rogues. Even exiles. The centennial royal moon gathering is mandatory. Failure to attend means death. Her hands are trembling. Then they are still. She has spent 6 years becoming a ghost. 6 years making herself small enough that no one would look. 6 years keeping a secret so dangerous she has never once said it aloud, not even to herself in the dark. And now he wants her back. The king. Her king. The one who stood before an entire kingdom and cut the bond between them like it was nothing. Like she was nothing. She folds the letter. She goes to the window. She goes to Leo's door. She stands there and listens to him breathe for a long, long moment. Then she reaches for his bag. We're going home, she whispers. The word sits wrong in her mouth. But here's what I need you to tell me, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. If you were Lyra, would you go back? Or would you let them come and find you, and face whatever came next on your own terms? Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And know that wherever that is, I'm sending you so much love from the bottom of my heart. Please stay with me. Chapter 1. She has learned to love the ordinary. The laundry, for instance. The specific piece of folding warm cotton in a kitchen that smells of yeast and cinnamon from the bakery below, the Henderson's Bakery, run by a stout human woman who calls Leo Little Wolf as a term of endearment and has no idea how precise she is. The radiator ticks. Rain taps the window glass. Lyra folds a small shirt, then another, and lets the rhythm of it carry her the way rivers carry things that have forgotten how to swim. Across the room, Leo is drawing again. He draws wolves the way other children draw suns, constantly, instinctively, without knowing why. They cover his sketchbook in charcoal smears. Wolves running. Wolves sleeping. Wolves standing on hills looking at something just beyond the page's edge. He has never seen one in the flesh. He has never shifted. He has never once asked why his eyes go gold in the dark and no one else's do. He is 6 years old and he trusts her completely, and some days that trust is the only thing holding her skeleton together. Mama, he says without looking up. Do wolves dream? All the time, she says. About running. He accepts this and keeps drawing. This is her life. She built it from scraps and silence, from fake names and a human city where no one looks twice at a woman raising a quiet child alone. 6 years of grocery lists and school pickups, and learning to breathe without counting the exits. 6 years of almost believing she had escaped. The knock at the door comes just after 7. Not a neighbor's knock. Not the hesitant tap of someone unsure of their welcome. This is the knock of someone who has never doubted their authority to be anywhere. She knows before she opens it. The courier is young. Pack-born unmistakably. She can see it in the straightness of his spine, the blankness trained into his expression. He holds out the letter without a word. Black wax seal. The king's mark pressed into it like a thumbprint on a bruise. She takes it. She closes the door. She does not open it at the table. All wolves. Even rogues. Even exiles. The words are formal, precise, merciless. The centennial royal moon gathering is mandatory by royal decree. Failure to attend will be treated as treason against the crown and punished accordingly. Punished accordingly. Her hands are very cold. Flash. A great hall blazing with candlelight. Her name spoken aloud by the one voice she would have followed anywhere. Spoken wrong. Spoken like a door being closed. She breathes. Flash, rain on cobblestones. Running. The specific sound of a bond snapping inside your chest, like a string pulled past its tension. She breathes again. Leo's pencil scratches softly from the other room. She stands there until her hands stop shaking. Then she moves to his doorway and leans against the frame and watches him in the lamplight. This child, this impossible, precious, devastating secret she has kept at the cost of everything else. He is bent over his sketchbook, tongue at the corner of his mouth, drawing a wolf with wings. She has never told him what that means. His eyes, when they catch the light, are the precise and specific gold of someone she refuses to name. Her decision is not a decision. It is a recognition. A door she has always known was there, always known she would eventually have to walk through. She simply hadn't known tonight would be the night. She goes to the hook beside the door. She lifts his small bag. "We're going home," she whispers to no one, to herself, to the 6 years she is leaving behind. The word sits wrong in her mouth. Leo sleeps. He does not know yet what he is. He does not know yet whose blood runs gold through his veins. She will not tell him. Not until she has no other choice. She is hoping still that she will not run out of choices. Chapter 2. Every scar has a geography. Lyra's begins here. A palace garden, the night before everything ended. Late summer, the air still warm enough to sit on the stone bench by the fountain without a coat. The jasmine doing what jasmine does, filling the dark with something almost unbearably sweet. Kaelin beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched, not speaking, because they had reached the kind of quiet that doesn't need to be filled. She had loved him long before she understood what loving him would cost. "Tomorrow changes everything," he said. Not a question. Not a complaint. Just the simple acknowledgement of a man standing at the edge of something vast. "Not everything," she said. He looked at her then, the way he only ever looked at her when no one else was watching. Like she was the one fixed point in a world that kept rearranging itself around him. "No," he agreed quietly. "Not everything." She should have known even then that the things we are most certain of are the first to break. The coronation ritual begins at moonrise. The great hall is blazing. 1,000 candles, 10 times that many wolves, the ancient words rolling through the chamber like thunder finding its shape. Lyra stands in the crowd, dressed in deep green, no title, no seat of ceremony. She is simply there. She has always simply been there. Beside him, behind him, the quiet constant he has never had to explain. The High Elder raises the ceremonial torch. And then it happens. Not gradually. Not gently. Like a key finding a lock that didn't know it was locked. The bond recognition ignites between them, sudden and total and devastating in its certainty. She feels it in the marrow of her. She sees the exact moment he feels it too. His breath catches, barely perceptible, his eyes finding hers across the length of the hall with the precision of something that was always going to happen. "Mates." The word moves through her like light through water. She is smiling before she can stop herself. They come for him before the ceremony ends. 3 council elders, gray-robed and unsmiling, drawing him into an antechamber with the quiet efficiency of men who have planned for this contingency. She watches the door close. She waits. The celebration swells around her. When he emerges, his face is stone. She has never seen his face be stone before. Not with her. She understands before he speaks. She understands from the new careful distance in his posture, the way he positions himself before the court rather than beside her. She understands from the way he does not look at her, because Kaelin, when he has decided something, cannot look at the thing it costs him. An Omega cannot stand as Luna Queen. The ancient law immovable. The council's ultimatum delivered in euphemism. The stability of the crown requires a suitable match. His voice when it comes is formal. Final. Enormous with everything he is not saying. Lyra of no pack. Each word placed down like stone on stone. You are hereby relieved of all proximity to the crown. This is not a request. The hall is absolutely silent. She is absolutely still. She will not cry here. She decides this with the same quiet ferocity with which she has decided every important thing in her life, quickly, privately, in the space between one heartbeat and the next. She will not give the council the architecture of her grief. She turns and she walks. The border is 3 hours by foot in the rain. She crosses it at midnight, the bond stretching behind her like a wire pulled to its absolute limit, and then the snap. There is no better word for it. Something load-bearing inside her chest simply gives way, and she has to stop walking for a moment, has to press her hand flat against a rain-soaked tree trunk and breathe through the specific pain of having something essential removed. She breathes. She straightens. She walks. Weeks later, in a human city with a different name, she will piece together what she was told secondhand. That he stood in the council chamber afterwards. That he took the exile papers. That the elder who witnessed it said he signed without reading them. That his hand, when he pressed the quill to parchment, was shaking. She told herself it meant nothing. She told herself this for 6 years. She does not know, crossing that border in the rain, that she is not crossing it alone. She will not know for another 3 weeks. By then it will be the only thing that matters. Chapter 3. She had a plan. Stand in corners. Speak to no one. Leave before the feast reaches its second hour. Keep Leo's hood up, his eyes down. His extraordinary impossible gold gaze pointed at the floor where it could not catch the candlelight and betray everything she had spent 6 years protecting. It was a good plan. It accounted for most things. It did not account for Leo. The kingdom announces itself long before the gates. The smell of pine resin and old magic rising through the tree line like something the forest breathes out on purpose, ancient and particular and devastatingly familiar. Lyra keeps her eyes forward. She has trained herself over 6 years not to feel things in her body before she has assessed whether she can afford them. Grief especially she has learned to process from a distance the way you look at a very bright light, indirectly, carefully, never straight on. Leo has no such discipline. Mama! His voice is a cathedral of wonder. He has spotted the horses first, 4 of them white as snow, drawing a ceremonial carriage through the main gate with the unhurried confidence of animals that have never once been asked to hurry. Then the banners, midnight blue and silver, the midnight eclipse crest rippling in the evening wind. Then the torches, the towers, the sheer accumulated weight of a place built to make you feel small. He grabs her hand with both of his. Can we see everything? No, she says. Can we see some things? She looks down at him. This child, this disaster, this love of her life. And his eyes are gold and wide and incandescent with delight. Keep your hood up, she says. He takes this as yes, which it was. The great hall swallows them whole. 500 wolves in their finest, the air thick with perfume and dominance and the low electrical hum of alphas performing restraint in close quarters. Lyra finds the darkest corner with the efficiency of long practice and stations herself in it, Leo pressed to her side, and begins the silent countdown to early departure. She is watching the room. She does not see him until he sees her. Lyra. The crowd shifts. A gap opens the way gaps open in water around a stone, and through it, directly through it, across the impossible distance of chandelier light and 500 bodies in 6 years, his eyes find hers. She knows them before she sees them. She has always known them. The bond which she had sealed behind 6 years of scar tissue and sheer will, detonates in her chest like something that was never dead, only waiting. Her hand finds Leo's shoulder. She does not move. She does not breathe. Kalen. He has been king for 6 years. He has learned to keep his face from doing anything his council hasn't approved. But there are things the body knows before the mind can intervene, And when his eyes find her across the hall, his body knows immediately, mate, and 6 years of gray, dutiful, miserable discipline simply ceases to exist for the span of one inhaled breath. He exhales. He reconstructs his face. But the damage is already done. Tanya notices in under 4 seconds. She appears at Lyra's elbow the way cold fronts appear. Suddenly, completely, with the cheerful devastation of weather that doesn't require your permission. Lyra said warmly, performed warmly. The specific warmth of a woman who has won and wants you to know it without technically saying so. How extraordinary. I wasn't sure you'd actually come. The decree didn't leave much room for interpretation, Lyra says. Tanya smiles. No. My husband is thorough. The word husband placed precisely. A thumbtack through a butterfly. Her gaze drops slowly, deliberately to Leo. Something moves behind her eyes. Brief. Calculating. And who is this? My son, Lyra says. Nothing more. The sentence is a wall. Tanya studies the boy with the patient, pleasant expression of a woman performing disinterest while cataloging everything. Leo, for his part, looks back at her with the calm, unsettling directness of a child who has not yet learned to pretend he doesn't notice things. He has remarkable eyes, Tanya says softly. He has my eyes, Lyra says. The lie sits between them. Tanya smiles at it. Of course, she says. Enjoy the evening. She drifts back into the crowd like silk pulled through water, unhurried, unreadable. Lyra releases a breath she has been holding since the gates. She needs to leave. Now, before the plan unravels any further, before Kaylin looks over again, before Leo does something luminous and irreversible and, Mama, Leo says, tugging her sleeve. That lady has mean eyes. I know, baby, she says quietly. I know. Across the hall, Tanya reaches her personal guard without breaking her smile. She leans close. The packless woman with the child, she says, voice barely above breath. Find out whose child that is. The guard disappears. Tanya lifts a glass from a passing tray, turns back to the glittering room and drinks. Chapter 4. The court has a smell. Lyra had forgotten this. The particular atmosphere of 200 wolves performing loyalty in an enclosed space. Ambition and deference, layered so thickly they become indistinguishable. Everyone watching everyone. Everyone calculating the precise angle of their smile. She had been navigating it successfully for 3 hours. Then Tanya found a microphone made of silence and used it. Begins small. These things always do. A gathering near the eastern banquet table. Minor lords, their mates, a cluster of younger wolves angling for proximity to power. Lyra is passing, not stopping, Leo's hand warm in hers, when Tanya's voice rises from the center of the group with the carrying clarity of a woman who has spent years learning exactly how far her voice travels. Ah, the serving girl. 200 heads don't turn at once. It's more surgical than that. A ripple. An orientation. The court locating the object of the Luna Queen's attention the way flowers locate sun. Instinctively, immediately, without apparent effort. Lyra stops. Tanya, she says. Neutral. Careful as a blade laid flat. I'm sorry, forgive me. Tanya presses a hand to her chest in theatrical contrition. I forget the correct address for packless women these days. There are so few of you who travel in polite company. Pause timed perfectly. How do you manage without a pack bond? I've always wondered. It must feel rather like walking around with a hole where your chest should be. The silence that follows is the specific silence of people enjoying something they know they shouldn't. Lyra says nothing. She has learned at great cost that Tanya feeds on response the way fire feeds on air. Remove the oxygen. Let it burn itself out. But 200 people are watching. And at the high table, she feels Kaylin's attention sharpen like a change in pressure before a storm. His jaw tightens. She can see it from here. the slight, controlled movement of a man exercising restraint at considerable personal expense. His eyes are on Tanya. His hands are flat on the table, perfectly still. Every elder on the council is watching him with the patient, warning attention of people who have explained the rules and will not explain them again. The king does not interfere with the Luna's social governance. Ancient law. Unbreakable. He knows this. They know he knows this. She watches him not move, and she feels something she does not have time to examine, something that is almost the beginning of a question she has carried for 6 years without letting herself ask it. Then Tanya's son steps forward. Darian is 10 years old, broad-shouldered, and has inherited his mother's talent for reading a room and performing for it. He plants himself in the small clearing the crowd has instinctively created and announces, to no one and everyone, that he will demonstrate his shift. The crowd watches with the politely encouraging attention of people who expect to be impressed. He strains. His face reddens. Nothing happens. A child nearby laughs, quickly silenced, but the sound exists. It has already landed. Tanya's smile does not waver by a single degree, but her eyes go flat and cold and immediately begin scanning for somewhere to deposit what she is feeling. They find Leo. He is standing slightly apart from Lyra, having drifted 2 steps toward a display of ceremonial swords that are approximately his height, and he is looking at them with the focused, reverential attention he gives to things he finds genuinely magnificent. His hood has slipped. His eyes, catching the torchlight, are gold. He is also standing straighter than any Omega child ever stands in a room full of alphas. Not defiance. He doesn't know enough to be defiant. Simply posture. The innate, unconsidered bearing of something that has not yet learned it is supposed to be small. Tanya sees it. The flatness in her eyes becomes something sharper. She speaks to the room, but she is looking at the boy. I invoke the right of trial. Her voice is ceremony itself, formal, ancient, utterly incontestable. The ungifted young are welcome to prove their worth in the ceremonial pit. It is tradition. It is honor. A pause. It is law. Murmurs. The crowd recalibrating. Kalen is on his feet. One motion immediate, instinctive, and then equally immediately arrested. His first elder's hand on the table. One small, deliberate movement. The king does not stop a Luna's lawful trial. Tradition. Unbreakable. His face does something Lyra has never seen his face do before. The guards move to Leo with the brisk efficiency of people following orders they haven't been asked to question. Leo looks up at the first guard with the calm, curious expression of a child who has not yet decided whether this is frightening. Then he looks back at Lyra. His hand in the guard's hand. His eyes finding her across the clearing, wide and gold, and absolutely certain that she will fix this, because she has always fixed everything, because in 6 years she has never once let anything happen to him that she didn't first make safe. He looks at her with perfect trust. It is the worst thing she has ever seen. She is already moving. Behind her she hears Kalen say her name barely. Under his breath. A word so quiet it might have been breathing. She does not stop to decide what it means. Chapter 5. There is a moment in every impossible thing just before it happens. The stadium had that moment. A held breath. 500 wolves gone absolutely still, the way animals go still when the air changes and something older than instinct says, wait. Something is coming that has no name yet. Then the moment passed. And Leo fell. The pit smells like fear and older wolves and cold sand packed hard by years of ceremony. Leo lands on his hands and knees and stays there for one breath, two, taking stock the way Lyra has always taught him. When something happens, don't react. First look. First understand. He looks up. The juvenile wolves across the pit are bigger than him. Not by a little. They are rangy and nervous and performing bravado for a crowd that expects it, which makes them more dangerous than confident wolves would be. The sand between them is perhaps 15 feet. Feels like nothing. He does not cry. He stands up. Above him at the iron gate, he can hear his mother. He has never heard her make that sound before, that specific frequency of terror from a woman who does not terrify easily. He wants to tell her he is all right. He cannot find enough air to speak. The largest wolf charges. It moves the way fear moves. Faster than you expect, consuming the distance between you before your body has decided what to do about it. The crowd watches. The crowd always watches. 500 pairs of eyes tracking the trajectory of an animal that outweighs the child by 4 times. Claws finding purchase in packed sand. Jaws already beginning to open. This is the paragraph that stretches. This is where time does what it does in the worst moments. Expands, becomes granular, shows you everything you don't want to see in precise and merciless detail. The wolf's breath, visible in the cold pit air. The sand scattering backward from its paws. Leo's face turned toward it, absolutely still. Not frozen. Still. There is a difference. He has felt it his whole life. A warmth behind his sternum, constant and quiet, like a coal banked low and patient. His mother never spoke of it when he asked. She would touch his face and redirect him with the gentle efficiency of someone who has rehearsed the deflection. He learned not to ask. But he has always known it was there. He has always known, the way you know things that live inside your own body, that it was waiting. The wolf is 3 feet away. Leo lets go. The warmth detonates. The shockwave moves outward like a stone dropped in still water. It does not ask permission. It does not build gradually. One moment the pit is noise and motion and 500 wolves watching a child about to be hurt, and the next moment silence. Absolute. Total. The kind that arrives before thunder, the kind that has weight and temperature and the specific terrible quality of something ancient being woken from a very long sleep. Every wolf in the stadium feels it in their marrow. The juveniles in the pit drop flat, instinctively, immediately, without decision, their bodies bowing to something their minds have no language for. In the stands, wolves sink to their knees one by one, rippling outward from the pit like a tide going out, involuntary and complete. At the high table, the council elders, men who have knelt for no one living, fold. Kalen goes to his knees. Leo shifts. Snow White. Enormous. Not juvenile enormous but ancient enormous, the size of something that belongs to a different order of creature entirely. Golden markings tracing his flanks like calligraphy in a language no one present has seen written in 500 years. And wings, not feathered, not flesh but light itself, structured and vast and utterly impossible, spreading from his shoulders like the opening of something that has been folded too long. The Evil Wolf. The celestial royal wolf. A species the scholars listed as extinct. A bloodline the histories described in myth. Standing in the trial pit on 4 enormous paws, snow white and gold and blazing, the ancient power rolling off him in waves that make the torches gutter and the iron gate sing in its housing. He opens his mouth. The roar that comes out shakes the walls. Not loudly, though it is loud. It shakes them the way the right frequency shatters glass, resonantly, inevitably, finding the specific vibration of everything in the room and moving it. Then silence. Then a very small boy. He shifts back the way sleep shifts to waking. Gradually, completely, the great white form condensing back into 60 pounds of 6-year-old who is evidently extremely tired. He stands in the sand. He looks at his hands for a moment with the considering expression of someone encountering them for the first time. He looks up at the gate. He finds her face. He walks to her. Not runs, walks with the particular unhurried dignity of a child who doesn't yet know what he has just done. And she is through the gate before it is fully open, down in the sand on both knees, and he walks into her arms with a small exhale that undoes her completely. "Mama," he says into her shoulder. "I'm here," she manages. "I have you." He pulls back to look at her face with his father's eyes, gold and steady and 6 years old. "Are you okay?" he asks. Behind them, the stadium has not moved. 500 wolves motionless, breathless, some still on their knees. Kalen has not risen. He is kneeling at the edge of the royal platform with the expression of a man whose entire understanding of the last 6 years has just been rewritten in a single minute. He is staring at the boy in Lyra's arms, at the gold eyes, at the impossible, specific, devastating gold eyes that he sees every morning in his own mirror. And now I need to ask you something because I need to know where your mind goes when you see a king on his knees. Kalen rejected Lyra to save her, but he spent 6 years married to her sister, the woman who tried to have his son killed. Does he deserve forgiveness? Or has he already used up every chance he was ever going to get? Drop your answer in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one and I love you for being here. Chapter 6. He had been king for 6 years. He had learned in those 6 years to ask only the questions he already knew the architecture of. Questions with walls and ceilings. Questions that led to corridors he had already walked. A king who asks open questions invites open answers, and open answers have a way of becoming problems that require managing, and he had enough of those. He did not know the shape of this one. He did not know its walls or its ceiling or where it led. He asked it anyway. The antechamber is small by palace standards, a waiting room technically, for dignitaries who needed somewhere to be while larger rooms were made ready. Stone walls. 2 chairs. A window overlooking the eastern courtyard where the last of the evening's torches were guttering out. Kalen had dismissed his counsel with a single look that communicated, without ambiguity, that the consequences of following him would be significant and permanent. They did not follow him. Leo is asleep on one of the chairs, tilted sideways, mouth slightly open, with the absolute boneless commitment to unconsciousness that belongs exclusively to young children and people who have just expended every ounce of supernatural power in their bodies. Lyra has folded her coat beneath his head. She is standing at the window with her back to the room when Kalen enters, and she does not turn around. He closes the door. He looks at the boy. He looks at the boy for a long time. How old? He says. Not a full question. He cannot make it a full question yet. 6, Lyra says. Still not turning. His name is Leo. The silence that follows has texture. Kalen moves through it carefully, the way you move through a room where something fragile has already broken, and you haven't yet located all the pieces. Lyra. She turns then. And this is what stops him. Not guilt, not grief, not the gold eyes of the sleeping child, though all of those are present and accounted for and doing considerable damage. What stops him is her face. He knew her face. He has carried her face for 6 years in the part of himself he does not examine in polite company, the part that exists below strategy and duty and the performance of being fine. The face he remembered was a girl's face. Open. Warm. Wearing every feeling it had on its surface because it had not yet learned that this was dangerous. The face looking back at him now has learned. She studies him the way you study something you once loved and now must make a decision about, thoroughly, without sentiment, taking inventory. He finds he cannot speak first. He who has opened councils and closed treaties and delivered verdicts that ended men. He cannot find the first word. She finds it for him. Your Luna is a murderer. Said flatly. Without heat. The way you state a thing you have known so long it has lost the ability to shock you, even as you understand it will shock the person you are telling. She reaches into the interior pocket of her jacket, unhurried, deliberate, and places a folded document on the small table between them. Then another. Then a third. 6 years of careful, quiet, methodical collection, assembled in a human city far from anyone who might have taken them from her. She poisoned your mother, Lyra says. I have testimony from the apothecary who supplied the compound. I have correspondence. I have a signed account from the handmaid who administered it on Tanya's instruction. A pause. I have had these for 4 years. I was waiting for a moment when presenting them would not simply get Leo and me killed. Kalen goes very still. Not the stillness of disbelief. He recognizes the difference. Disbelief is active, searching, pushing back. This stillness is different. This is the stillness of a man standing in a room where the last 6 years have just been relit from a different angle, and every shadow has moved. His grief, which has lived in him unnamed and structureless for 6 years, has just been given a name. It is not grief. It was never grief. It was evidence. He opens his mouth. The walls move first. It is not visible exactly. More felt. A deep, resonant shift in the quality of the air. The way pressure changes before a storm, but more deliberate, more ancient. The torches brighten fractionally. The stone beneath their feet hums at a frequency just below hearing. Lyra's eyes go to the walls. Something moves across her expression, recognition. Dread. Truth-binding, she says quietly. The oldest law. Older than the council, older than the crown, older than every tradition Tanya invoked tonight to put a 6-year-old child in a pit. Dormant for generations. Triggered, the ancient texts say, only in the presence of the celestial royal bloodline, only when the Ethelwolf walks in the pack halls and the magic of the original dynasty recognizes its own. No one within these walls may speak a falsehood until the celestial power recedes. No one. Kalen looks at Lyra. Lyra looks at Kalen. In the chair, Leo sleeps through all of it, one hand curled loosely at his cheek, trailing the faintest thread of gold light from his fingertips even in unconsciousness. The door opens. They both turn. Tanya stands in the doorway with the composed expression of a woman who arrived intending to control a situation. She takes in the room, Lyra, Kalen, the documents on the table, the faintly luminous child, and something behind her composure performs a very rapid calculation. She takes one step back. The doors seal. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Simply, finally. The soft, certain sound of something that has been waiting a very long time to close. Tanya's hand finds the door handle. It does not move. The walls hum. She cannot leave. None of them speak. The truth is already forming in the air between them, the way weather forms, invisibly, inevitably, and with complete indifference to whether anyone is ready for it. Chapter 7. Magic does not ask if you are ready. It simply opens the wound. Tanya's first truth comes out like something pulled against its will. A splinter extracted without anesthetic, slow and specific and causing damage on the way out. She fights it. Lyra watches her fight it. The jaw working, the careful construction of a deflecting sentence beginning and then collapsing mid-syllable, beginning again, collapsing again. Tanya, who has never once in her life said a thing she did not first select, shape and weaponize. Tanya, for whom language has always been a controlled instrument. The walls are not interested in control. The curse, she says finally through her teeth, was a moonwitch binding. Third order. Administered in Kalen's wine the night before the coronation. The room has been filling. Court members drawn back by the particular gravity of something enormous happening. They line the walls now, silent, the truth binding touching all of them, ensuring that whatever is spoken here cannot later be reframed or denied. It suppressed his mate recognition sense. Tanya continues, each word extracted at cost. Selectively. He could still recognize every other bond. Only hers was silenced. Made to feel like absence. Like she wasn't there. Kalen has not moved. Lyra watches his face perform an expression she has no name for. Something that lives in the territory between devastation and a terrible dawning comprehension. You couldn't feel me, Lyra says. Not accusation. Just the sentence completing itself aloud. At the coronation. When the bond ignited. I felt nothing, he says. The words cost him something significant. I believed the council when they said you had been investigated. I thought the bond's silence was. He stops. I thought it was the goddess confirming what they told me. What did they tell you? She asks. His eyes go to Tanya. That she had poisoned my mother, he says. That you were a traitor. That your packless status was a disguise for something worse. A pause. That the bond one thought I felt was a manipulation. Dark magic. Yours. The silence that follows is the specific silence of people understanding that they have been watching a 6-year tragedy that was authored entirely by one person, for reasons that were always only about a throne. Tell them the rest, Lyra says to Tanya, quietly, without looking at her. Tanya's confession of the Queen's murder arrives in the room like a stone dropped from a great height. The words are clinical, the compound, the timing, the handmaid who administered it, and was subsequently relocated to a distant province where she would never be heard from. The court absorbs it in degrees the way cold is absorbed, first unbelievable, then undeniable, then simply horribly true. The Queen had discovered something. This is the piece that lands last and hardest, the reason Tanya moved when she did, the urgency that drove her to murder rather than simply manipulation. The Queen had been researching Lyra's lineage. Tell them what she found, Lyra says. Tanya's silence is the most furious silence Lyra has ever heard. The walls hum, patient and immovable. Her grandmother, Tanya says, was Seraphine of the First Dynasty, hidden during the Great Purge, raised as Omega to survive. Each word a concession ripped from somewhere she has guarded for years. The Omega bloodline was a disguise, generations deep, constructed to protect the last surviving royal heir until the bloodline could resurface. She stops. The walls do not let her stop. The Ethelwolf cannot be born from nothing. It requires the original royal strain. Lyra is not, she was never. The sentence breaks. Reforms. She is the last living descendant of the First Dynasty. The throne does not belong to the Midnight Eclipse Pack by right of conquest. A breath. Furious. Helpless. It belongs to her by blood. The court does not erupt. It goes very, very quiet. The specific quiet of people recalibrating everything they thought they knew about the hierarchy they have lived inside, the power they have deferred to, the woman they have called Luna Queen for 6 years. Kaelin turns to look at Lyra. She is already aware of him looking. She has been aware of him looking for the last 10 minutes, the way you are aware of a fire in a room, peripherally constantly without needing to face it directly. You knew, he says. Not accusation. Wonder mostly. Grief underneath it. Your mother told me, Lyra says. The night before the coronation. She had found the records. She wanted me to know before. She stops. She was dead within the week. The room breathes. Tanya stands at the sealed door with 6 years of architecture collapsed around her. Every lie dismantled, every justification dissolved, every carefully constructed version of herself stripped back to the single, unadorned, indefensible truth of what she actually is. She looks at Lyra. For the first time in 6 years, she looks at her without the armor of superiority, without the comfort of a stolen title, without anything between them but the plain, ruined fact of what she chose and what it cost and what it was always going to cost eventually. Lyra does not look back. She is looking at the throne. It sits at the end of the great hall, visible through the open antechamber doors. Ancient stone, no cushion, no ornamentation beyond the First Dynasty crest carved into its back. A crest she has known her whole life. A crest her grandmother drew for her once from memory on the back of a letter. She understands now why it felt familiar. She understands now why it always felt like something she was moving toward rather than something she was kept from. Behind her, the walls have gone quiet. The truth has finished with them. It has left everything exactly as broken as it needed to be. Chapter 8. Tanya is removed without ceremony. This somehow is the most devastating thing, that it is quiet. No dramatic arrest, no public theater. For guards, a sealed order, and the specific sound of footsteps that are no longer voluntary. She does not speak as they take her. She looks once at Kaelin, and whatever she was looking for in his face, she does not find it. She looks once at Lyra. Lyra watches her go with the expression of someone who has been waiting 6 years to feel something in this moment and has discovered, now that it has arrived, that she feels mostly tired. The court remains. Of course it remains. 200 wolves who have just witnessed the dismantling of everything they understood about their kingdom. They are not going anywhere. They line the walls of the great hall in absolute silence, and in that silence, Lyra can hear Leo breathing beside her, small and warm and awake now, watching everything with the patient, serious attention of a child who understands that something important is happening even if the full architecture of it is beyond him. Kalen stands at the center of the hall. He looks at Lyra for a long moment. Then he removes his crown. He holds it at his side, not offered yet, just removed. As though he understands before anything else that whatever happens in this room, he has no right to wear it while he says what he needs to say. He kneels. Not for show. This is the first thing Lyra registers. There is no performance left in him. She has watched Kalen perform his kingship for 6 years from a distance, has seen the reports and heard the accounts and assembled from fragments the portrait of a man who rules with total control and reveals nothing. The man kneeling in front of her has set all of that down somewhere and walked away from it. He is simply present. In a way she has not seen him be present since a palace garden, a summer night, jasmine in the air. The rejection, he begins. His voice is steady, deliberately so. I told you that you were unfit, that an Omega had no place beside a king. I chose those words because they were the words most likely to make you leave quickly, and I needed you gone before the council decided that exile was insufficient. A pause. I told myself that a clean wound heals faster. I have since learned that a wound is not clean simply because it is deep. The court does not move. The marriage. The word costs him more than the others. I married your sister knowing I did not love her. Knowing the bond one should have had with you had been made invisible to me by her own hand, though I did not know that then. I know it is not absolution. Understanding why a wrong was committed does not unmake the commission of it. Lyra says nothing. She is listening with the particular quality of attention she has developed over 6 years of assembling evidence in a human city. Total recording, giving nothing back. The silence, he continues. 6 years of it. I told myself you were alive somewhere and that was sufficient. I told myself that finding you would endanger you further. I told myself many things, Lyra, in 6 years of silence, and I have had approximately the last 40 minutes to understand that I was telling them to myself because the alternative was admitting that I had made choices I could not take back, and I did not know how to live with that and still function. He stops. In the silence, a small voice. Are you my father? Leo. Standing at Lyra's side, one hand loosely holding the fabric of her sleeve, looking at Kalen with the direct, undeflectable attention that has been undoing adults his entire life. 6 years old and utterly without artifice, asking the question the entire court has been not asking for the last hour. The court hears it. Every wolf in the room hears it. Kalen looks at the boy. Something in his face breaks, not violently, not with any of the drama the moment might seem to call for. Cleanly. The way old ice breaks on a river in early spring, inevitably, quietly, because the temperature has finally changed and there was never any other way this was going to go. Yes, he says. Simply. Without qualification or preamble or any of the political architecture with which he has surrounded every significant statement for 6 years. Yes, I am. Leo considers this with the gravity of someone receiving important information. Okay, he says finally. And then, because he is 6 and has apparently reached the limit of his interest in adult emotional reckonings. Mama, can I sit down? My legs are tired. Lyra's throat does something she refuses to let her face acknowledge. Yes, baby, she says. Sit. He sits on the throne steps, directly, without ceremony, because they are there and he is tired, and resumes watching the proceedings with the focused interest of someone following a story whose ending he hasn't decided on yet. Kalen rises from his knees. He reaches up with both hands and holds the crown out. Not to offer it, to surrender it. There is a difference, and Lyra can see that he understands the difference, and that the understanding is costing him the last of whatever he came in here with. She looks at it. 6 years ago, she would have taken it as return, as reunion, as the restoration of something stolen. She would have understood it as his, offered to her, which would have made it still, fundamentally, his. She stands. She extends her hand. Not to him. To the crown. Give it to me, she says. Not unkindly. There is no cruelty in it. No revenge dressed as justice. Simply clarity. The specific, unambiguous clarity of a woman who has spent 6 years in a human city above a bakery assembling evidence and raising a child and becoming, in the enforced quiet of exile, entirely certain of who she is. Not unkindly, but with no ambiguity at all. The court watches the king's hands open. The crown passes, and something shifts in the pack lands, felt by every wolf present and every wolf beyond the walls, like a key turning, in a lock that has been waiting 500 years to be opened by the right hand. Chapter 9. She does not make a speech. She does not ask permission. She does not look to Kaelin or the council or the 200 wolves lining the walls of the great hall, each one holding the particular stillness of people witnessing something they do not yet have the language for. She walks to the throne. Her footsteps on the stone floor are the only sound in the hall, even unhurried. The walk of a woman who has been moving toward this room her entire life without knowing that is what she was doing. The throne sits exactly as it has sat for 500 years, carved from the black stone of the original Pack Mountain, the first dynasty crest cut deep into its back. She has seen it in documents, in her grandmother's drawings, rendered from memory on the backs of letters that no longer exist. She has never once seen it and thought, that is someone else's. She lifts the crown. She sets it on her own head. The description ends there because the moment needs no ornamentation. No trembling hands, no swelling sentiment, no pause for the weight of it. She simply sits, in the seat that has held her bloodline's shape for 5 centuries, waiting with the patient indifference of stone for the right bones to fill it. The throne knows. Stone remembers older oaths than men. It moves through the pack lands like a current finding the sea. Not gradually. All at once, every wolf within the territory feeling it simultaneously. The ancient magic of the first dynasty recognizing its sovereign and responding the only way it knows how. Outside the great hall, in the courtyards and the forests and the pack villages stretching to the border, wolves shift. Involuntarily. Completely. Drawn to their knees by a recognition older than any law the council ever wrote, older than the conquest that displaced the bloodline, older than the 6 years of wrong that preceded this moment. Inside the hall the court follows. One by one, then all at once, the same ripple that moved through the stadium when Leo first shifted, now moving through the entire kingdom. Every wolf in the hall drops to one knee with the quiet, inevitable quality of something that was always going to happen and has simply finally been allowed to. The pack magic thrums through the walls. The torches burn gold. Lyra sits in the throne of her bloodline and lets all of it arrive. The recognition. The power settling into place around her like water finding its level. The specific, enormous, quiet truth of being exactly where she is supposed to be. She does not cry. She breathes. Footsteps on the throne steps, small, familiar, utterly unconcerned with the gravity of the moment. Leo climbs the steps with the focused determination of a child who has identified his destination and sees no reason to be theatrical about reaching it. He reaches the top. He looks at his mother on the throne, assesses the available space, and sits down directly beside her feet with the decisive practicality of someone solving a seating problem. He leans his head against her leg. The court, 200 wolves kneeling reverent, on the precipice of a new era, watches a 6-year-old make himself comfortable on the steps of the most powerful throne in the pack world. Leo looks out at the bowed heads with mild interest. Mama, he says at a volume that carries. Yes, baby. I'm hungry. The laughter when it comes is involuntary. It moves through the hall the way the truth binding moved through it. All at once, unstoppable, finding every wolf in the room and releasing something that has been held at considerable tension for the last 2 hours. Not disrespectful laughter. Not the laughter of people who have forgotten what they are witnessing. The laughter of people who have been reminded, at the precise moment they needed reminding, that power does not preclude humanity. That a queen can have a son who is hungry. That the most ancient magic in the world coexists, apparently with the need for a snack. The tension breaks clean. And in the breaking something settles. The specific warmth of a room that has moved from fear to something more complicated and more sustainable. Loyalty, maybe. The beginning of it. Lyra looks down at her son and something in her face does what it has been refusing to do for 2 hours. It softens. Briefly. Completely. Soon, she tells him. He accepts this and turns his attention to his own hand, raises one finger, and begins drawing something in the air, slow, considered lines that leave traces of gold light hanging for a moment before they fade. He is drawing a wolf. Of course he is drawing a wolf. He draws them the way other children draw sons. Movement at her left. Kaelin takes his position beside the throne. Not behind it, not kneeling before it, but beside it. At her left hand, the consort's position, which has no crown and no authority and requires, from its occupant, the specific humility of a man who understands that he is here on tolerance and must build the rest from demonstrated worth. He does not speak. She looks at him once. His face holds everything he said in the Great Hall and everything he hasn't said yet and everything that 6 years made of both of them. The damage, the grief, the particular devastation of 2 people who were always supposed to be standing exactly here and arrived at it by the worst possible route. She looks at him. It is not forgiveness. She will not insult either of them by calling it that yet. It is possibility. The door before the threshold. The breath before the word. She looks away. This is how it ends. Not with a wedding. Not with a declaration or an embrace or the neat resolution of everything that was broken. The broken things are still broken. They will require time and truth and the slow, unglamorous work of 2 people deciding, daily, that the future is worth more than the wound. This is how it ends. The great hall full. The kingdom bowed. The torches burning gold in the sconces of a throne room that has waited 500 years for this particular occupant. A man standing at a queen's left hand, beginning the long work of earning what he threw away. A queen sitting in the seat her blood always knew. And on the steps of the throne that will one day be his, a 6-year-old boy trailing light from his fingertips in the shape of wolves, drawing them the way he always has. Finally understanding why. She did not take the throne from him. She took it back from history. And history for once did not argue. Thank you for staying with me through every chapter of Lyra's story. From that moonless night with the decree stamped in black wax, all the way to the throne that was always hers. If this story moved you, if you saw yourself in a woman who rebuilt herself in silence and came back as something unbreakable, tell me in the comments. Tell me what Lyra means to you. Hit the subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from. I send you so much love. Every single one of you who stayed, you are the reason stories get told.